Oh, today is November 5th, 2019. This is the standard SIG cluster lifecycle call. Let's take a look to see what we have on the agenda. We only really have any standard status updates. Are there other things that folks want to discuss at all? The only topic that I can think of that I wanted to bring up was that Fabrizio had done some good work in sort of taking some of the things we laid out here in for the face-to-face that we're going to be having at KubeCon. My plan is to go through this in more detail not this week, but next week. So I might ask the sub-project owners to step up and to maybe have a separate call for next week for us to go through the slides, or they can verify asynchronously. That would be helpful. So as a reminder, we're going to try and get the slides done by next week, so that way we don't have to scramble for KubeCon.
Yeah, I was just going to say I volunteered to help with that, but I have not coordinated any efforts, nor do I know of any efforts that have yet been coordinated otherwise. So I don't. Is there something I can help with, or should I coordinate? Should I create some slides?
I think slide updates are the best way to do this. So if you go over here and you're here, hopefully folks can see that.
I was not aware. Yes, we can. I was not aware of this. This is one that you've created as a starter. Great.
Well, so it's the start, and I believe I shared it with this group in a private chat, whoever is going to be speaking. So let me put this link inside of the meeting notes. And what I think I'll do is, if it's okay with sub-project owners who are listed in this section here, is I might set up a separate call for next week sometime, probably mid next week, for us to just make sure that the slides are in order. Maybe 30 minutes to make sure that to serve as a forcing function. Chuck, you have a question?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was a little confused. There's this these slides that you're making. This is for the project roadmap. Is that different than the face-to-face that you briefly mentioned at the very beginning?
That is the face-to-face, pretty much.
That is okay, cool.
We don't actually technically have SIG face-to-faces anymore, so we have to make an excuse by saying like it's a meeting of some kind. So I think project roadmap was a good way for us to get new contributors involved, as well as talk about long-standing issues and questions that we've had.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Are there any questions there? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right, we can go into the standard sub-project updates to get more feedback from the community. Lubomir, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I added some notes for KubeADM, only 3 quick items. So we're trying to resolve some end-to-end test failures right now. And these are not caused by KubeADM. If you have been following this, they are caused by changes in etcd kernel, also changes in kind. So we are working, me and Fabrizio are working on that, and also we are coordinating with the release team to fix these. Another PSA here is that we started discussion on how to consume the KubeADM API config more easily by tools like Cluster API, or in general by high-level tools. So this is a working group component standard issue. We already discussed the problem of how to consume the kubelet type properly from a high-level tool like KubeADM. So please comment on the issue if you have any ideas. Another one is that in 1.17, we added support for Docker 1903. This is only on the validator level, so you can still use even newer versions than of Docker. We are also updating the etcd server to 3.4 and potentially also updating core DNS, but this is still to be decided. That's all.
What's the, I know this is a short cycle, what's the current date for code freeze?
I need to check. I think it's the 11th of November. Let me check.
Ooh, it's coming up soon. Is that like, the dates, they keep on changing the names for things. So this is actual, nothing but bug fixes occur after code freeze, right?
Yes, it's code freeze. I just checked. It's on the 14th of November.
That's really soon. To do a core DNS update in that short period of time is a little sketch.
Yes, given it's not decided yet, we might drop this. I'm more concerned about our work in progress features like Windows, getting Windows to beta. Also, we have a machine readable output. I don't know the state of that. I need to talk with whoever is assigned to this item.
Do we have an updated test job specifically for KubeADM in Windows?
No, I spoke with someone from Pivotal who is working on that, but it's, I believe there are some problems. And I'm skeptical that we are going to get this to beta in this cycle.
If you can reach out in the SIG cluster lifecycle channel to figure out who the point of contact is from the Windows side, I'll be happy to help wrangle there.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Lubomir? And once, twice, 3 times. Daniel at CDADM.
Yeah, we have a end-to-end test running in Prow, so that's that's gonna make everyone's life easier. Finally, it happened. It took a little while figuring out things in Prow, but that's there, and we're actually running at CDADM in Docker with systemd. So moving to multiple members will happen soon. So yeah, that's it.
Very cool. Is there, now it sounds like you're getting towards the containerized space. Is there any plans to do in like maybe 118 or 119 to start to do initial POC of integration with KubeADM at all?
Yeah, I think yeah, there is an issue open for supporting etcd in static pods. That is, I think that. Let me double check. So we also added a roadmap, and I'm trying to recall if that particular. If it's not, then I think that would be, there's definitely interest in that. So that, yeah, that should be, if it's not on the near term, I'll, yeah, it is on the roadmap. So yeah, potentially the next release.
Cool. Any other questions for Daniel at all? Going once, twice, 3 times. Thomas, Minikube.
Sure. We did a 1.5 release the other week. We actually had to follow it up with some point releases to address some issues and shortcomings in for newly introduced bugs. And so we're planning to do 1.6 for KubeCon, and hoping, I guess 1.6 will mostly be, I guess, performance related. We are planning on demoing at KubeCon during our deep dive talk a couple of new features, the VM-free deployments, multi-node, and a prototype macOS menu bar UI. We're also testing a PR bot to report performance regressions. One of the issues that we've had is that it's hard to understand the performance implications of incoming PRs. Sometimes people claim that there's a massive speed up, and there's actually not. It's actually in the other direction. So we're right now it's on a very coarse. It's very coarse grained, and that it's just reporting that like start takes longer. But where we would like to get is implementing a PR bot that actually reports that these functions take longer than in master. So the code for this is in the Minikube repo if anybody is interested.
Just from my own curiosity, are these just standard sort of behavioral driven tests, like sort of end-to-end style tests?
Yeah, so it's right now we're mostly concerned with cluster startup. So right now it's just measuring that. But it's measuring just basically the average across 3 runs for master versus the PR. And we're looking for a signal of that there's a noticeable difference or not. So we plan to add like a list of other actions to perform, but so far we're just focused on start.
If you found any performance implications in kubeADM that you want to optimize, feel free to submit PRs there too as well.
Yes, we expect maybe not on the, we don't know yet on the start latency, but one of the places that we expect to be launching PRs. So the first step is measuring latency. Once we get latency down, we're going to start measuring overhead of some of the Kubernetes services and try to dial down the overhead for local Kubernetes type solutions. And those PRs will definitely go upstream. So, but if we do see something for kubeADM, we will definitely be putting it upstream. We don't want to be a special snowflake here.
Can you elaborate a little more on overhead besides like
Sure.
latency? Are you talking about overall size and space and efficiency as well?
So I'm mostly focused on CPU overhead. I would really like to get a running Kubernetes cluster down to say 5 to 10% CPU overhead on a MacBook Pro. We are a ways away from there right now. We have not started doing measurements in this space, but that's part of what the PR bot is designed to function for. So
there's been a lot of asks. The reason I ask is in the history of time, we've seen a lot of people wanting to run Kubernetes across sort of edge devices,
right.
Smaller and smaller footprints. I call it the Kubernetes toaster.
Yeah,
kind of as a joke, but it is a valid use case, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these folks are running on really small ARM environments, and optimizing resource efficiency and utilization is super useful.
Yes. Yeah, we've done some discussions about whether or not we need to start looking at memory overhead for people who are doing unique configurations, but so far it has not been a focus for us.
Okay. If you have an issue, an umbrella issue, or a tracker there, I think those who are optimizers might be very interested in that.
Yeah, I will find the link to it.
And I could maybe even publicize a little bit more on the mailing list, because this is a state space where we almost get pinged on a, I don't know, monthly basis for people who have like some weird thing has been broken inside, either resource efficiency is not that great, or some weird thing is broken inside API server initialization on some really resource constrained environment.
Sounds good. I'll make sure to do that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Thomas? Once, twice, 3 times. All right. Next up, Jason, Cluster API.
Yeah. So I have a list of the most recent releases that we've had for various Cluster API projects. feel free to take a look. And they're all V1 Alpha 2 oriented releases. And for the most part, they're addressing bug fixes. I think CapG and maybe CapV may have some features in there, though. I'm not familiar enough with them to say. Other than that, we've been making a lot of progress on the proposals for V1 Alpha 3. I think the only one that's still seeing relatively heavy comments at this point is the control plane cap. I'm waiting for the last comments to come in from somebody who's actively reviewing it right now to do a final pass through so that we can hopefully get that proposal merged. Otherwise, I expect the other proposals to probably start landing shortly. Outside of that, we've been doing a lot of work to improve the EDE testing for the AWS provider in particular. And thanks to DIMS, there's been a lot of work going on for testing conformance of Kubernetes build artifacts against both the GCP provider and the AWS provider. So we're starting to see actual upstream conformance signal running against cluster API. So hopefully we can use that to continue chipping away at the removal of the /cluster directory. And the only other thing I had was a topic mostly to discuss with Justin. We've had to tweak some fixes with the AWS janitor, and every time some changes are made, we keep getting asked why the janitor code doesn't live under Boscos, even though we're deploying it, as part of Boscos. And I have to go through the history of how the project originally was a standalone project that was running as a periodic job. We kind of jumped in and co-opted it to also run as part of Boscos. But I wanted to check with you to see if there were any objections to keeping the dual usage, but moving where the code lives to the Boscos directory versus the maintenance directory.
And just to clarify, it's the same repo, it's just a different directory?
Yep, exactly.
Sounds fine. If it makes your life easier, it's fine with me.
Cool. All right, I'll follow up with that. I just wanted to make sure and get an okay from you before we went ahead and just move things.
Sure.
And I do see you have a question there about whether it's using kubeadm master or not, Tim. I am not, well, yeah, so it's using the CI generated artifacts for Kubernetes. So it is using kubeadm built from master.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just making sure that like if we're testing tip of cluster API and tip of KK. So like that, the CI signal would be weird for conformance if you're testing a different.
Yeah, so we're making sure in the test that we're either testing tip of cluster API or tip of Kubernetes, but not both at the same time.
My only comment is still that no one besides the cluster API people will make any sense of this, except for this one denoted way of denoting the version inside the release name. That is actually useful. I don't know.
So that's actually probably misleading, Tim, because that alpha.2 is not actually referencing V1 Alpha 2. It is it is an alpha.2 release of version 0.2.0 of the GCP provider. And I don't have history for why those versions are numbered that way.
Yeah, I'm going to push on the sub-project to try and address this going forwards. If we need to have a flag day, then we have a flag day, at least for V1 Alpha 3, because it's so confusing. No one will understand this. Are there any other questions? Go once, twice, 3 times. Justin.
Yes, in Copsland, I'd say we didn't have a terribly productive 2 weeks. Through some mistakes I made and some other things that happened, we had our ETE tests or our own ETE tests fail. And so we basically spent some time fixing that. But the good news is we have better EDE testing now that is like back to running the latest and greatest of everything, I believe, and is more consistent across AWS and GCE, and skips Ginkgo tests. So if people want to know how to skip that lovely script, they can peek at what Cups did.
Any other questions for Justin? Moshe, image builder?
Yeah, so I've been working quite strongly on CLI to improve the user experience of using the image builder. And I'll be doing a demo of that in the meeting tomorrow for image builder.
Do you have ACLs to push to the YouTube channel, Moshe?
I don't. I think Jason has been hosting the meetings till now.
Okay.
But yeah.
So long as the meetings get recorded and pushed, doesn't really matter who does it.
Yeah.
We can probably sync offline if if Jason goes on vacation or something. That way you can have permissions to push.
Cool. And then after the CLI, I want to use that as kind of a base for building the automation and at least testing of the images. So I think I'm going to get quite familiar with Prow and probably the Google infra potentially. So I could definitely use some help on that side.
So the real question I'm going to have now is when do we form Voltron but with less dead cats and have the full image builder to Kubernetes artifacts to cluster API all turnkey?
What's your question?
It's a question of when, but I think the answer to that is as soon as people can get to it, I think.
Yeah. So I have a lot of the pieces in lots of different places. One of the things that I wanted to start on was building the images and testing them locally using KVM. So I just need to work out how to get Google projects, GCP projects, and create the correct images in a Proud job and kick those off. There's actually very little documentation on that, so I'll start bugging people probably from next week.
Okay. I think I don't know if Dims is on the call or not. I don't see him. We should sync with Dims on some of his end-to-end testing work, because the end state, the ideal end state, is to have like the tip to tip, where we at least have signal there. So like you'd be able to, the tip of image builder would be building latest images that would be then consumed, that actually bundle the artifacts, including kubeadm, as well as all the Kubernetes artifacts, and then being deployed via cluster API.
Yeah. So we'll get there, just a matter of when.
Yeah. So I think this is a good roadmap thing to discuss on our roadmap here and talk about it. So you're going to be at, are you KubeCon North America, Moshe?
I'm finalizing that now, but hopefully I'll be there, yes.
Okay. All right. Are there any other status updates or questions, comments, complaints, concerns? I saw this comment here, which I think the old invite was languishing. I just made an update while Moshe was talking earlier. So that's.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Are there any other questions, comments, complaints, concerns? Otherwise, we get like 34 minutes back.
I had a question for the image builder. Is there a documentation on how to get started with experimenting with it? Because I'd be curious to look into using image builder to, say, build Minikube images.
So as part of the CLI, I'm trying to eliminate as much of the steps as possible. So it could really be downloading a binary and running it with a config file.
Yeah.
But as I'll produce those docs as we go along.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll be shorter rather than longer because there's fewer steps required.
Another question of curiosity: how long does it take to build images right now with Image Builder?
So it depends on which
Right.
version and iteration.
Yeah.
But I've got a QEMU-based one that can build images in about 6 or 7 minutes.
Okay. I'm asking because right now Minikube images, because it's basically building everything from source code, it takes about 50 minutes, and that's a painful iteration cycle for us. So I'm interested in looking in future directions for this. So
Excellent.
I will pay close attention. Thanks.
Cool. Any other questions? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right. We have a short one this week. I will send out a meeting invite to the sub-project leads for next week sometime for us to walk through the slides for KubeCon. My goal is to have a more cohesive narrative. Like, we often have this picture inside our slides, which is basically how all the sub-projects fit together. But I want to make sure that the roadmaps and the ideas kind of jive together too as well. So look forward to an invite coming soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.